That was another thing that you guys recommend that I find fascinating. This is kind of an easy way. Like we're doing the easy stuff that, that's what your book is all about. What is cold therapy, Colleen, and why do I need it? How does it change my life?
Yeah, so cold therapy is all the rage right now. And it's one of the hormetic stressors, which so many people are incorporating into their routines. And I think there's two different types of stressors. And one of the reasons why we talked about cold therapy is because anyone can emulate it. You don't need one of the $4,000 cold plunges that you see on the internet, but you can do it with the joy of a cold shower. Cold exposure can also activate brown fat. There's lots of great science behind it. And people with brown fat had a lower incidence of type 2 diabetes, lower incidence of
What's brown fat?
Abnormal cholesterol, and a lower risk of coronary artery disease, hypertension, and congenital heart failure. One of the things we are also super transparent about in this book is that we do not do cold therapy. We acknowledge that there is a ton of amazing science, but it is something that does not bring us joy. I have Raynaud's. I get really cold. I will literally start to shrivel and my body will turn purple. So we do a lot of things, but I think at the end of the day, we all have to be adults. We have to take responsibility, be the CEOs of our own health and well-being, and understand what are going to be the needle movers for us on our own journeys.
But I like the thing about the shower because I don't want to get into an Arctic, pit of water from the snow. But I have heard, and occasionally will do, the hot shower, and just for the last 60 seconds, you turn it cold. And I'm in there like, but you come out feeling like you had a cup of coffee. You feel invigorated. Do you get any benefit from that? Is that enough?
You do. And I think our view is everything counts to some degree. And I think with cold, if it's 30 seconds or a minute, you're going to get some benefit. And you do start to have diminishing returns if you try to overdo it.
Okay. All right. Well, this is good to know. So I like that. That's a good, you don't have to go to, the mountains. You can do it in your shower in the morning. How about that? The other super easy thing, and I've been thinking about it all morning, is breathing through your nose.
This is probably one of our favorites. And we started the book with breath, primarily due to, I had a pulmonary embolism over 10 years ago when I had literally showers of clots in my lungs. And it was the first time in my life that I really thought about one of the most basic things we do, which is breathe. We breathe 17,000 to 30,000 times a day. And more than half of the population is breathing all wrong. If you're not sure if you're breathing wrong, if you snort, it's probably a sign that something's off. So there's about 50 to 80% of adults that exhibit what we call dysfunctional breathing habits. Anxiety, allergies, sleep apnea. And, the key you really hit on is breathing through your nose or nostril breathing. There's a ton of health benefits to it in terms of filtering out the bad stuff, increasing CO2 tolerance. As someone who runs high in anxiety, I like it because breathing through your nose activates the parasympathetic or the rest and digest system. So you are instantaneously ushering in a really welcome sense of calm. And we respond to tools that can be used IRL. So not the tools necessarily that you do before work or after work in elaborate morning routines that so many of us just don't have the time for, but what you can actually do when you're in the middle of a stressful meeting, when you're driving and someone cuts you off, is just to instantly start breathing through your nose. You can practice when you're doing the dishes so that you can build your way up to being able to breathe through your nose and nostril breathing at night.
And it actually does have something to do with all the filter that the air has to go through, like your nose hairs. But even beyond your nose hairs, stuff happens in the back there that will filter the air before it gets to your lungs in a way that's not going to happen if you mouth breathe.
Absolutely. It filters out bad stuff like bacteria and viruses. So it's just a good idea across the spectrum of health to mental health.
So fascinating. Who knew? And again, we'll get to food, but the other thing that's great, and I mentioned it right off the top of the show with our pal David Marcus, is socialization. Socialization. It's crazy how beneficial this is. Jason, you can truly extend your lifespan. It's worse for you to be lonely than it is to be a big boozer, a big smoker, or even obese.
Yeah, this is such a huge one, given the state of the country we're in right now. 24% of young adults under the age of 30 suffer high levels of loneliness. 1 in 7 men don't have a single friend. 1 in 10 women don't have a single friend.
Oh.
20, and if you think about, okay, so why does this matter? In terms of increasing one's odds of premature mortality, lacking social connection is slightly worse than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Being lonely is twice as worse as having 6 drinks a day. That's 42 drinks a week. 3 times as worse as being physically inactive, 4 times as worse as being obese. One study, researchers even found that those who were socially isolated were 45% more likely to get sick with a common cold. And so, look, nutrition and exercise are paramount. We should always be talking about them, but we need to talk more about connection, specifically because of the loneliness epidemic and the mental health epidemic. We all need IRL connection. And you know what? There was a 2019 study out of Cigna. This is pre-pandemic that said only half of Americans were having meaningful daily face-to-face social interactions. God knows what that looks like in 2023. Scary.
There are so many nutrition and fitness influencers in the health and well-being space, and we want to create a resurgence of social connection influencers, inspiring people to get together IRL, because not all connection is created equal. So if you are texting someone and thinking, oh, I've got a friends, I've got a network, I've got a community, it literally does not have the same impact on oxytocin, the love hormone, or in terms of decreasing your cortisol levels as it would if you had the tender touch of a friend or a loved one who was nearby and who was able to comfort you when you're in the midst of hard times. And as we look now with such a scary mental health crisis, 60% of high school girls dealing with, some sort of depression, we really need to draw upon these tools and to help teach everyone how to better weather the inevitable ups and downs that life entails.
You say pick up the phone. Like it can be phone. Phone's better than text.
Yeah, and I think this is an area where men are traditionally way worse than women, myself included. And I think phone, yes, but this is where texting and social media can be to your advantage. I think there used to be 20 years ago the awkward moment of picking up a phone and then someone doesn't recognize your voice. Now it's a simple text. Hey, so and so, it's Jason. Been too long. Been thinking about you. Would love to reconnect. Right away, you'll gauge their appetite with their response, and you're probably going to be pleasantly surprised. And I think that's something that can go a long way, and it's something I'm personally working on.
I've told the audience about my Nana. She lived to 101. She was born in 1915. And she was overweight. She had never exercised a day in her life. She existed in her last 2 or 3 decades solely on processed food. I mean, we gave her real food, but she just preferred the other stuff. And so why did she live to 101? She was social. She lived on her own all the way through 100. She walked up and down the hall. She chatted with everybody. She was hilarious. And I'm telling you, I'm convinced that this is why she lived as long as she did.
Well, I think you're onto something. And in the book, we talk about the Rosetto study, which we discovered in the process of researching and writing the book. And Rosetto was this small town in rural Pennsylvania in the 1950s. And this is when heart disease arrives in America, but not Rosetto. The rate of heart attacks in people over 65 was half that of the nation. Men under 55, no heart attacks. So they said, what's going on in Rosetto? They seem to be immune to heart disease. Well, they were smoking, they were drinking, they were eating lots of pasta and meatballs. This makes no sense. Pretty much any wellness expert you'd ever have on your show would say, do not do these things. And so when they took a deeper look, Rosetto had incredibly strong social connections. Multi-generational living was extraordinarily common. The drinking, the smoking, and the meatballs was in the context of parties, parades, enjoying wine and food with family and friends. They were just so incredibly connected. And guess what? In the 1960s, people started to move away and heart disease arrived and caught up with the national average.
A sad ending, but we can all change that in our own lives and sort of try to get more communal. Look, you did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people and pulled your business through the pandemic. And now doing the tough thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Government funds are available to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. This is not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. The program's complicated, but no one knows more about it than the CPAs and tax experts at covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front. They do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify, including those who took PPP loans, even if you had increases in sales. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Now let covidtaxrelief.org help get you up to $26,000 per employee. Visit covidtaxrelief.org. That's covidtaxrelief.org, covidtaxrelief.org. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.